Hey guys, so this is going to be probably one of my first ever videos on this channel. I have two other channels, but I wanted to specifically have a channel to talk about things that's going on in the last days and just, my thoughts and opinions on some things. So, disclaimer, all of my thoughts, all of my opinions, my outlook on everything is going to be coming from a Christian or biblical perspective. So today I wanted to talk about how I cloned Tyrone. And I was not about to watch it because I thought it was a series. But then I found out it was a movie and I was like, okay, I can actually like sit and watch that because I didn't want to watch like an entire series. Just me personally, I like movies. So here are some of my thoughts about it. So number one, I don't think it's a conspiracy. And I know that, one of the tricks of the enemy is to release something as entertainment, especially within the Black community. We like to put things in and kind of throw it under the rug of like comedy or, like humor, satire, whatever the case is. And I really do think that a lot of things are being exposed. I'll put a scripture down below. I know somewhere in scripture it says how like knowledge will be increased. And I don't think that just meant like for the big things. I think for the little things as well. So if you're a believer, I don't have any personal convictions to not watch it. I think it's very insightful. If you are a believer who specifically understands like your Hebrew roots and lineage, it would definitely be interesting to watch just to kind of see how things have impacted the Black community, from food to hair products to just our everyday life. So first of all, this is not going to be in order, but this will be spoiler alert. So if you haven't watched it, don't watch this video yet. For starters, the food. There's a scene where Jamie Foxx, the girl, and the guy, Fontaine, are eating chicken and they're laughing. And the Jamie Foxx, I don't know the actor's name, so I'm just going to say Jamie Foxx because he was the one who's playing in it. He looked at him, he said, "Yo, I've never seen you laugh before. That's kind of crazy." And then he was like, "I never seen you laugh. Haven't been a day in my life I've seen you laugh." So he looked at all around the restaurant and noticed that a whole bunch of people were like laughing. Like there was not one person that wasn't laughing. And so he was like, "It's in the chicken. It's in the chicken, bro." And so anyway, that's just one little part of a scene of the movie where it's so funny because I wouldn't say there's actual chemicals in our food that makes us happy or laugh immediately. But it goes to show that everybody knows there's been chemicals in our food for years. And a lot of people are now more so accepting the fact that that's not just a conspiracy. But there have been studies and cases where, these people know, FDA, USDA, whatever, they know that there's certain chemicals or there's certain protein, there's certain ingredients in certain food that makes you literally addicted to it. Say for instance, like what does Oreo, cheese, milk, cream cheese, ice cream, all that stuff have in common? Casein. Casein is a protein, it's an enzyme protein, and it essentially sends like dopamine signals to your brain and it makes you want more. And so a lot of dairy products have that in it because, it comes from milk, it's dairy. And, there are people that are literally like, "I cannot stop eating Oreos." And I think on the news a few years ago, they were talking about how Oreos are like almost as addictive as cocaine. Now that might be a stretch, but if you really think about it, what do you see newborn babies do after they have some milk? They're like milk drunk. They're like, oh, they're sleepy, whatever. Same thing with a cow. So it's like that itself isn't bad, but I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be surprised if the people that, distribute our food know that our bodies and our brains react to certain things and maybe use more than a safe amount, or maybe tweak it a little bit. So I honestly don't think the food part of it isn't a conspiracy. We know about GMOs, we know about pesticides, and we know, there's so many other things in our food that's not necessary. We know that. So it's kind of like, I think it's more far stretched to say that it's not possible than to say that it is, just my opinion. A second thing I noticed in the movie that I want to comment on was the hair products. Now, I have not had a perm or anything in my hair for a few years now. I cut all my hair off in 2018 and I started growing my locks. Not saying you're like a bad person if you don't have locks, whatever, you do you with your hair, right? But it's interesting how they use the relaxer and the cream crack what they used to call it back in the day, as a point in the movie as well. There's a woman that was like, I don't know how I'm going to feed my children. I don't have enough money. Da 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 da. She was like getting stressed out, and she was in the hair salon. And as the lady was putting the relaxer on her hair, she was like, you know what? I'm just probably tripping. And like her whole mind, like things that she was focused on, it didn't even matter anymore. And I think that's so interesting because, again, distorting, adding fabrication, but also putting some of the truth in there. There have been studies I will put in the video that shows a link of cancer and other diseases with women that have permed their hair. And there was a guy at the morgue that put out a report showing how like he kept seeing these black lesions, these black spots on like, you know, women's brains when he was preparing them for the funeral and whatnot. And he said he only noticed it in black women. And he was wondering why no other nation, or mainly no other group of people, had this. It wasn't in black men either. And he started to pick up on the fact that the women that had straightened their hair, or that chemically straightened their hair, whether it's perm, relaxer, Texlax, or whatever, were the only ones that had that. So if you have a lesion literally on your brain, big enough for someone to see after you die, then what type of impact is it having, you know, throughout your life? So literally, I know there's been a lot of change with the natural hair community. You know, everyone's kind of feeling their self and realizing like, I don't have to straighten my hair to feel beautiful. I don't have to straighten my hair to be professional. But there's still a lot of people that use perms and relaxers. And I'm not against wearing your hair straight. You know, I'm not against wanting to try new styles. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying feeling like you have to force yourself to put a chemical literally in your hair to permanently denature and destructure the natural form of your hair. That's kind of like, okay, you know, we already get heat damage easily when we have the flat iron on too high. Imagine that times 20 when you use a perm. And so I'm not bashing anybody that does. I'm just showing how like the movie makes it seem like, oh, that's so funny, it's chemicals, but it's actually chemicals in it. I think Chris Tucker or Chris Rock, I get their names mixed up, did a hair documentary showing the chemicals that's in a perm. And I think he took like a turkey with no hair on it, and just dipped it into the perm and the relaxer, like put it on there. And in a few minutes, he showed how the skin was burnt and how it was burning all the way through. So it's just kind of like, it's been knowledge for years. It's just whether you want to think it's all a conspiracy or not. Another thing that's in the movie is kind of like a silent killer. This idea that you are in the condition you are in, not just because you put yourself there, but because there's this big brother, person watching from above to keep you in the same condition you're in to benefit them. Again, if people were to never stay in the hood, companies wouldn't profit off of the hood, right? Like you have a drugstore, a church, an abortion clinic. Those are the three things that you see almost in every hood, in every neighborhood, right? All of the people that profit off of those wouldn't get a profit anymore. That's saying like the rich stay rich and the poor stay poor. So I'm not going to say that, oh, if you're in a hood, you never have a chance. You're just absolutely never going to make, because there's a lot of people who get out. But I will say that it takes more than just saying it. You have to educate yourself. You have to figure out the bird's eye view. Like, wait a minute. Who convinced me that being the king of my hood was better than me traveling or moving to a state and starting over and, actually making a life for myself? Who convinced me that having baby mamas and doing drugs and doing fights and being involved in fights and doing every bad thing I could think of, who convinced me that that was living life? Who convinced me that that was cool? Like, who put this into play to tell me that that's how life should be? And sometimes, you pass down generational curses just like you pass down generational blessings. Sometimes, you see a habit or a pattern from your family and you literally just continue it because you know no better. I understand that. But if you really think about it, people don't do as much work as they say they do to give people in the hood like a better opportunity. How many people are out there doing like SAT and ACT prep? How many people are out there showing people that, hey, college is an option, trade school is an option. You can do this, you can also do this. I feel like there's more influence to stay where you're at and just become the top hood N-word than to grow beyond that mindset. So anyway, I definitely think that, you know, again, not saying that everyone, if they're in the hood, they're just destined to stay there and there's nothing else and there's nothing they can do about it. You can do something about it, but it's like the cycle just repeats and repeats and repeats, and people just feed into it. And other people, not just white people, other corporations and companies are literally profiting off of your ignorance. So again, I feel like they very well pointed that out in the movie, and I was just like, dang. But a lot of people won't watch it and be like, oh, it's just a movie, you know, whatever. So the last point, which is the biggest thing, is the cloning thing, right? Okay, so y'all know I got resources. The CIA in like the 1960s were doing MK Ultra, mind control, and cloning experiments way back then. And I think in either 2015 or 2000, they actually cloned a full like animal, like a sheep or a lamb. So it's easy to clone, like, you know, like ants or like maybe mice or, you know, like frogs for experimentation, right? But when you get to complex animals such as a sheep or a lamb, that's like, that's a lot. It takes a lot, you know? And so they basically grew and made this, you know, scientifically grown, lab grown embryo. And once it got to a certain size, they put it inside of a real live lamb mother and let her like grow it the rest of the way. And that thing lived for like 5 or 10 years. So this idea that cloning is like not a thing, okay, listen, be for real, okay? It is. If they have been doing MK Ultra and mind control and cloning experimentation since the 60s, they say they discontinued in the 80s and 90s because it wasn't working, but whatever. Whatever we know about the higher ups, whatever they allow us to know, that means they're probably like 10 years ahead of that or 20 years ahead of that, right? So I don't think that they're cloning Tyrones and just dropping them into the hood like they a newborn baby or something like that. But I would not say that it's completely off the table. You may have a celebrity that has been multiple places at one time that's going along with the satanic agenda. You may have a president that has declining health, but because of the agenda that's going along with the world and the economy and the whole government and the president thing, you know, they may need to stay alive for a little bit longer. You may have a celebrity that speaks out against the things that's going on, like child sex trafficking, or like, you know, trying to expose, like, I don't know, maybe some things about the government that they, to show they really don't care about our health and our well-being like they say they do. And then they may get cloned. So again, not trying to get all spooky and like sci-fi, but honestly, if the fallen angels biblically were able to come into women and have Nephilim giants, and they also were, if you look in Genesis, they were also mixing themselves with every other, like them fallen angels were having sex with almost anything and everything, okay? And they were creating mixed breed and human hybrids of other animals. And I personally think that's where you get a lot of like the Catwoman, Superman, Spider-Man, like those mixtures. I feel like that's a lot of that's where a lot of those Greek and Norse Roman mythology, like those gods come into play and all that kind of stuff. But if you think about it, if they were able to have hybrids way back in the days of Noah, why would it be so strange to think of that people are doing the same things now? Because the fallen angels during the flood, they didn't die because they're angels, they're immortal, you know. And then also the Nephilim giants and some of those creations, they die, but their spirits, you know, kind of still linger on. So it's just like, if I have any other thoughts, I'll make another video. I didn't want it to be too long, but hopefully I posted some screenshots of some evidence and some articles that you can pause and look at throughout the video. And if I can find links or like a screenshot of like what to search to get to that, I will do that as well. And again, you know, in the end times, we are living in the end days. I think we're in the last hours. You know, just remember to not be deceived, and like, don't take everything for face value, but also don't be so quick to think that this stuff is not possible. You know what I mean? Because in order to be deceived, that means like you were manipulated. You didn't see it coming. It threw you off. It was something that you weren't expecting, right? So if you brush everything off as sci-fi, oh, this is conspiracy, oh, this doesn't matter, oh, this is this, then, you know what I'm saying? Like for the people that are like, oh, the mark of the beast is spiritual. Okay, yes, but it's also physical. You know what I mean? Because it says, let no man buy or sell unless he take the mark in their forehead or in their right hand. So there is going to be something that you're going to literally have to make a choice at some point. Are you going to accept this and take this or not? So whether, let's just go with the theory that it is just spiritual, you still are having to either come in agreement with it or not and make a choice. You know what I mean? So don't write everything off as, oh, this is just sci-fi, oh, this doesn't really matter, because the only thing that's real is what we can see, and God, and everything else is just sci-fi, because a lot of sci-fi movies got their inspiration from the Bible. A lot of sci-fi movies got their information from fallen angels and from people who are working with darkness. You know what I mean? So watch the movie. It's a good movie. You can definitely get a lot of insight if you look at it from a spiritual standpoint. And I will talk to you guys later.